Today's video is a very important one. We're going to be discussing drum accents, particularly how to start your track with a drum accent in mind. But firstly, what is a drum accent? A drum accent is essentially where you choose a point in the groove to prioritize the swing and the sort of groove that goes in the track. More importantly, you emphasize this point so that the track grooves with this point. Now, explaining this is really difficult. And the people I've been teaching, I've been able to show them, but I've not been able to tell them. So today's video is all about drum accents and how we can apply them to our tracks, particularly how to start our tracks with a drum accent in mind so we've got groove in our track. But firstly, this is a track I worked on called Showtime, and I'm really happy with this track, but what I love about it is the groove. The groove is just irresistible, pardon me. But let's listen. So hopefully there you will have felt, this is quite a good track. It's got lots of groove, and this is my favorite track for the groove. Like, I don't think I've written a better track for the groove, but let me show you how I did it, because that's why you're here today. I started the track with this. And I love this sort of melody. I thought it was really good. So I wrote a tambourine that follows it. Can you sort of see how this is essentially following the exact same pattern? Dun, 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 dun. It's following how the bass line has started. And this is what a drum accent is. I could easily have just done this instead. Do you know what I mean? And we'd have lots of energy, and maybe the track would sound a bit more energetic. But we need to have emptiness to have full. We need to have quiet to have busy. And this is what drum accents is all about. It's not about just copying the bass line, copying a specific pattern. It's not about any of that stuff. What it's about is, where do we want our drums to be busy and where do we want to leave space? Writing the bass line first is brilliant for this, because essentially what you're doing is dictating the groove of the track from the thing that people are probably going to come back to. People typically come back to a track for its bass line or its hook, especially in the music we make. There are tracks where people come back for the groove, and that's a specific style. But if you really want to understand drum accents, this is how I would start understanding it, is that when we've written this bass pattern, we're not copying it with the drums. We're figuring out, where does the bass line get busy? That's where it gets busy, where all the notes triple up. As we can see, if we go onto the actual bass channel, on the bass channel here, where it gets busy here, that's where we're having the tambourine follow. So that's just the tambourine. What about the perks? We've now got a call and response going on. I'm having this play the first sort of swingy notes, and having this play the last sort of swingy notes. It's following that same rhythm. Then if we add a little snare in, layered up, we're layering up with that perk, we're adding a bit of texture now. Cool, but I'm not going to focus on these type of drums, because obviously that is, what you would typically start with as a beginner. But this workflow is, you're infusing the groove in there straight away. So now I've got a hat that's just straight up following everything it needs to follow regarding the bass. However, I've also got, everything hitting on the open hat as it would. And is there anything else? Yeah, and then this one's just kind of following. Yeah, it's just following the tambourine, this one. I think I laid this with this. Yeah. So again, kind of following the drum accent, I'm making this busy when this gets busy, but also leaving space in between them, not busying it up too much. That's what you end up with. So let's check out a different track. So a second track I've written called Baby Come On. Same again, I'm kind of just going to flick through this. So if we strip everything down to its main elements. So I started with this bass line. Pretty interesting bass line. Then I'm coming in here with some hats. Can you sort of see how the hats are going with the groove? Literally placing them where the bass line's hitting. It's going so nicely with it. It's not like I'm having to force it. It's just working. And obviously we've got a main open hat. Just a nice little snare there. But these perks are kind of where you'll realise it. Even this bit where the bass line gets longer, I've basically quadrupled up on these hits. Kind of emphasising this point as well, but I'm not doing that anywhere else. Reason being, I want to emphasise that specific point, and I want to make sure that when these bass notes are hitting, I'm making the percussion hit there as well. That is what drum accents are all about. And honestly, it really doesn't take that much to get drum accents sounding as clean and as good as the professionals do, because really all it's about is you establish a groove with the bass line, and then you go, right, how can I make the perks and drums fit that? But when I've made it fit that, make space around it. See how with these hats, I've not got them anywhere else but where that's hitting. But on these hits, if I'm going to add anything that's outside of what's doing on the bass, I'm doing it strategically. I'm trying to roll in and roll out of these sections rather than just filling gaps, because leaving the gaps where the bass line isn't busy is perfect for establishing a groove. Like I said, you have to have busy to have quiet, and that's what this technique is all about. And then finally, with my favorite track, Guest List, I've done this exact technique with, and this track has got lots of support. So pay attention. It's the exact same as I've been talking about. We start with this bass line. Simple pattern really, but simple as that, and then you just get the rest of the drums following that. Hopefully you can notice that when the bass line's quite simple there, but when I'm playing that do 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 do, that's where I'm getting this to be more busy. Whereas here, playing the same pattern, yes, I might not be leaving the most amount of space, but this is how the technique works. And then finally, this is where the track gets elevated. I've got a drum accent that's more of a synth that's layering on top of the bass. That's kind of what you remember the track for, and that's why this track is so groovy and has such... the groove's just infused in the track from minute one. From this layer all the way to everything else I add. Even these little double hits are just layering up what's already there. And this perk, literally just following the ending point. So it's not just about following exactly what's going down. You can even create a call and response with the drum accent following from the bass line. And I think that's important. That's really how you make this technique work that I'm talking about in this video. If you want to follow the bass line to establish a drum accent, try your best to create call and response between the drums, as opposed to just one drum following it and another drum following it, and it just gets too layered and too messy, and there's no groove. You're kind of just copying the bass line for its groove rather than establishing a groove with the bass line and using the drums to fill in a bit here, fill in a bit there, roll into it, roll out to it, leave space in between the bass hits so that the groove can breathe. that is the final note for this video. Hopefully this video has taught you something new. I don't feel like people talk about this on the internet too much. I did see a video from Underdog, and that's kind of where I got this concept from. So go and check them out because they teach some amazing stuff. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, and I'll catch you another time.